Hey guys, Cameron for Vinyl, Season 1, Episode 8, E.A.B, which is, of course, in reference to the simplest guitar chord ever played. But I was really looking forward to this episode because we've really been on a streak lately. It really seems like Vinyl, they're trying to get better, they're trying to understand what's best about the show, and I really think this was by far the most well thought out episode of this season because this episode focused on what makes Vinyl so great. Yes, the characters are really good, yes, the actors are very good, but the music is really what everyone watches the show for. I mean, the show is called Vinyl, and they haven't really been focusing on the music as much. They focus more on Richie Finestra and his downward spiral, and this episode, everything seemed tied back to the music. Everyone's doing things because of the music, everyone's doing things for the music, and everyone's trying to teach people about music, and I definitely really like that. Even Devon's storyline, I mean, it's still kind of went with the music, which I definitely really enjoyed, and I really like this episode overall. Really great stuff. There were some really great scenes this episode, but let's just get into it because I really did enjoy it. It was a fun episode as well. Like, there were some really fun scenes in this episode, and that's something I really enjoyed. Vinyl doesn't always have to be a highly intense show. You can have some fun scenes, and that's exactly what this episode had. But let's just get into it because it was a great episode overall, and I love the way the episode starts because right away you can tell this is going to be a fun one. We see Zach, Richie, and Skip. They make a trip to Chemical Bank, basically, to meet with Zach's friend, Alan Chinitsky, I think his name was, to learn the outcome of their business loan application. And Zach feels then being approved is a sure thing since the loan officer is an old friend from his high school days and they shouldn't have a problem with this. And I like the way they tried to appeal this guy. They asked him, you know, is he a fan? Does his son listen to Grand Funk? And they tell him, oh, we're going to get you tickets to a concert. They think they'll get this loan with no problem. Unfortunately, the company's liabilities outweigh the assets, and the loan is denied right away. And you see, he really doesn't want to have to do this, but basically, he has no choice but to deny the loan. And obviously, they're really pissed off, not at that guy, but more at Zach, because Zach told them, oh, we'd have a fair share with this, and clearly they didn't. And basically, they're all, they're yelling at Zach, saying that they're really pissed at him. But we also find out that Richie wants to start using cocaine again. Not abuse cocaine, but use it responsibly, because basically it helps him clear his head. And he also feels he's more, he's better when he's on cocaine than when he's not using cocaine, because everything started to go wrong for them when he wasn't using cocaine, and things went right for them when he did use cocaine. So he really feels that using cocaine is the thing he needs to do, and while I don't think it's the best thing, it does show why he's still doing cocaine. It's not just because the showrunners want to get Richie deeper and deeper into darkness. It's more that Richie is finding a way to be responsible while using cocaine, while still being able to, use cocaine, which I thought was interesting, and we saw that. I think it was an interesting reason. And I actually really enjoyed that because they could have just done the thing where, oh, Richie's just doing more cocaine and he's going to get himself more and more into darkness, but there was a genuine reason for it, and I really enjoyed that. Now, it's not necessarily something I needed. I didn't need a genuine reason, but I did like that he's, again, doing it for the music. When the music is best, when he has the best inspiration, things like that, is when he is doing cocaine, and when he's not doing cocaine, he doesn't feel like himself, which is very interesting, and I think makes Richie actually a lot more interesting, and really shows how great of a producer he really is, and how record executives really need certain things to make them feel sane. Definitely, I think that was very interesting. So I really enjoyed the way that started out. But then we go back to Hal in this episode. If you remember way back in episode 3, Richie told Hal to come up with a subtitle for American Century colon something else, and all of his ideas are pretty terrible. I mean, his ideas are like dicks and things like that, and Andi isn't happy with any of his ideas. She thinks they're really stupid, and basically, after telling him that none of these are going to work, they're horrible ideas, she just fires him. She fires him right on the spot without Richie's consent, and that's the thing. Andi, you can tell, is really thinks she can make all these decisions, and she really can't. She needs to get Richie's approval. That's the sort of thing that you need Richie's approval for, and even though I understand she was really fed up, and she wanted to fire him because he really wasn't taking it that seriously, and wasn't really giving the, well, actually, I think he was taking it seriously, but his ideas just really weren't what she wanted. She didn't have to fire him. She could have gone to Richie first, told him what was going on, but no, she decides to fire him because Andi thinks she's in a lot more control than she is. And again, it made sense to me. I mean, Andi's very much thinks she's like one of the heads of this company, and she's really not. She's just there because Richie feels they need her to modernize things, and she knows what's good and what's not, definitely. I mean, I don't think that, I'm not going to say Andi's bad at what she does. It has nothing to do with that. It's the fact that she really needs to find her place. I mean, it's not her place to just fire someone on the spot. That's what Richie does. It's not something that she does. That's just kind of how it is. So I definitely really like the way that went. Very interesting stuff. Hal's obviously pissed that she fired him. But then we get the best stuff in this episode, which I thought had to do with the nasty bits. And then as the episode went on, I think it got better and better. Basically, nasty bits are recording. And I have to say, the nasty bits for me, they've been working. They've been working overall. I know a lot of people say they haven't been working. I think that there's been a lot of missed potential in the nasty bits and what we want to see from them. This episode is more or less what I want to see from the nasty bits every week. I don't just want them to be, you know, having sex with Jamie or Jamie reassuring Richie that they're great and everything. I don't need that. What I want is more what we had here. Show why the nasty bits are so great to Richie, because we've seen the nasty bits before. They're nothing that amazing. They're an average band at best, but you really start to see in this episode why the nasty bits mean so much to Richie, and I definitely really like that. They're recording and practicing for their upcoming gig with the New York Dolls, and Richie isn't impressed with their studio session at all. He's really thinking that, you know, he says, guys, where's the demo you gave me? And he talks about how he was so affected by the demo, you know, with their messages about sex, drugs, crime, all that stuff. You really just felt their emotion into everything, and that really, the best songs, you really feel that. You don't just feel like they worked hard on it, you feel like they have a personal connection to what they're talking about, and that's where the best songs come from. And basically, you see, he's very frustrated. He's telling them that they need to figure this out. And Kip is very frustrated, doesn't know what else to do. So Lester decides to kind of help the band out, give them this little crash course on the basically creating a song. And I love the way that this scene was done. You guys know I love Lester. And Lester, you really see his relationship with the band in this episode. The way that he taught them things, that whole scene where he's teaching them about the chord progression of E.A.B, which is the easiest chord to ever play. He talks about how you should think of a song. And I've heard this before. Think of a song like your skeleton. Just start with the skeleton, and then add the eyes, the ears, you know, body parts, add the emotions, things like that, and then you have a song. And I thought that was very well done. And he plays them a little bit of all the songs that kind of go with that chord E.A.B. But there's one song that they don't recognize, and that's A Woman Like You. They've never heard this song. The other songs they recognize, but they don't recognize A Woman Like You, and they don't know where it's come from. And eventually, Kip decides to confront Lester about it because, you know, he wants to know where he came with the song and everything. And it turns out that Lester actually wrote this song. This is a song that Lester wrote back in his blues days, but he never actually got to perform it. And definitely, I like the way that that scene was done. I thought it brought Lester and Kip closer, and you actually see they're kind of bonding over this. Like, Kip kind of has been through the same situation. He's wrote a song, and they haven't really done anything with it. So I like the way that that was done. And you also have to think that there was a woman once in Lester's life, and she left him, and I'm assuming he's talking about his wife. If you remember, back in episode 3, he imagined what his life would be like with his wife and kids and things like that, and I'm pretty sure the woman he's talking about is the woman he wanted to be his wife, because I don't think they actually ever got married. I think he wanted her to be his wife. They didn't get married, and I think he wrote that song because of her, which is very interesting, and I definitely really do like that. And you can really see that Lester's starting to find his place. He's starting to get closer with the band, and I really like that. We don't need every episode Lester moping around. Give him something, you know, good to do, and I think they gave him something really good to do in this episode, something that really furthers the plot, and I really enjoyed it overall. I thought Lester really was great in this episode. I love all his scenes with the band, and I thought that was very well done. Now, meanwhile, Zach is also trying to help them out, because he's meeting with Gary. If you remember, Gary was the young piano player at Karen's bat mitzvah, and he's also the one that really got Zach to realize what true passionate music is, and he's really inspired by him, basically. Gary, you know, has this really creative spark, which Zach senses, and basically Scott shows up moments later with a recording contract because Zach wants to sign this guy, and Gary basically, because, you know, Scott wants to know, well, what's so great about him? He's really all that great. And by the way, Scott worked for me in this episode. I've said it before, I don't like Scott, but this episode I thought he was fine. I don't think he was too bad. I don't think that he was annoying by any means. I did like the scene, though, where Gary's singing, and he's like, I don't understand what's so, and Zach's like trying to shut him up. That's how you use Scott. Don't have him say just weird things to say weird things. Have him be the ignorant one and have everyone trying to shut him up. I think that's funny. When they do that, that's funny, and I think they are starting to understand how to use Scott in scenes. Scott is by far my least favorite character, but I think they're using him really well in this episode, definitely, because Gary sings a cappella at the table, and a hush falls over the entire restaurant. Everyone is just focused right on Gary, and the guy who plays Gary, I mean, Douglas Smith, he has a great voice, definitely. He has an amazing voice, and his performance is met with uproarious applause. You can just tell everybody loves this guy, and again, it's not just the music, it's the passion he puts into it. It's that he feels every word he's singing, and that's what great musicians do, and I would know this because I've done chorus and chorale and musicals and things like that, and it really is true. When you do a song, you gotta feel every single word you sing. You gotta have a personal connection. If you don't know a word you're saying, you gotta look it up and learn what it means. I mean, that's just how it works. You gotta make sure that you have that passion behind the song, and that's something that this episode really showed, and I definitely really love that. And that's why Zach really thinks Gary is the real deal, because Gary feels everything he's saying. Gary knows how to project emotion, and that's why Zach is so enamored by Gary's abilities, which I really loved. So Corzo then stops by American Century, and Richie thinks he's there to talk about Nora, because that's the last time that Corzo was there. But Corzo said that he fired Nora. He fired Nora because she was terrible, and that it was kind of just a distraction to get them away from the police. And Corzo is very jumpy about because he's been questioned by the police about Buck's murder, and he actually is there this time at Buck's murder. Before, remember, he told Richie everything's gonna be fine, but this was before Corzo didn't think anything bad would happen, because it's clear that Corzo's been through this kind of thing before. He's kind of just, I think he also said that to calm himself, because I think he was worried, and he kind of distracted himself with Nora, but now that Nora was terrible, you know, now he's moving forward, and Corzo tells Richie that he's obtained a lawyer, and advises him to do the same, and basically, they need to find a way out of this, because, you know, they don't want to go to jail, they don't want something bad to happen to them, and they need to find a way to get out of this, basically. So I like that we got this little scene with Corzo, because before, we know we had a very similar scene in episode 3 where Corzo arrived, but it was about Nora, and now he realized that he didn't like Nora, actually, which is interesting. And you have to wonder, I mean, did he really think Nora was that great, or did he just have her as a distraction to not think about Buck? I kind of am wondering about that, so that's very interesting. So while Richie and Skip are having a double-speak conversation about inventory and numbers, Zach and Scott burst in, excited to tell Richie about Gary, and Zach is willing to mortgage his house to pay for development of Gary, and Richie tries to talk him out of that option. He doesn't think it's a good idea. And, you know, he just feels that, you know, as good as this guy could be, they already have enough acts. And they then hear this ruckus in the lobby, interrupts their conversation. Hal's returned. He's very drunk. He obviously tries to talk to Rich. He was oblivious as to why Hal's so upset. He just thinks Hal's going crazy. He doesn't really know what's going on here. But Hal tells him that Andi fired him, and Richie is stunned by this. You know, the fact that she had the audacity to do this without consulting him, which, yeah, I mean, he has a right to be upset, because he's the boss. He's the one that makes all the decisions. Andi is not the boss. Andi's just there to modernize them, and she clearly thinks she has a lot more power than she does, and she doesn't. Hal then removes a silver necklace from around his neck, which holds a pentagram amulet, and he placed a curse on the entire office and the staff, which was crazy the way that was done. But obviously, Richie's going to have some words with Andi. You can tell there's going to be a lot of conflict there, and I don't think Andi's going to be working there much longer, because if Andi really thinks she can make all these decisions, she has another thing coming. I mean, I don't think she realizes that Richie is the one that really makes all the decisions. Richie's the one that does all these things, and she doesn't really get to make those calls, you know, even though she wants to. She doesn't really get to. It's Richie's office, it's Richie's company, and that's kind of how it's always been. You know, Zach can as well, but Richie and Zach are really the only ones that can do that. So in the mailrooms, Clark and Jorge have an honest conversation about office politics, and Jorge's still upset about his friend Hernando being fired, but the two reach a mutual understanding over a snort of cocaine, and a few dance moves to the funky sounds of Isaac Hayes, and the beginning of a new friendship is formed. And I like these scenes between Clark and Jorge, because it wasn't like Clark and Alice Cooper. It just seemed like Clark was discovering more music, and I definitely really like that, and especially at the end of this episode, we will get into that, but I think they're really starting to use Clark more and more, and again, it was all about music, which I really liked. So Richie feels he's out of options to obtain cash because he's not getting cash any other way, so he decides that he's going to make a deal with the devil. He meets with Maury to discuss possibilities of taking out a loan from Galasso, and basically Maury tells him that, you know, if you want to do this, you got to talk to Galasso, there's no other way to do this. Unfortunately, though, we know Galasso is a gangster, and he's not just going to listen to Richie's ideas, he's going to throw his own idea into it. And I like that we saw Galasso again, because Galasso really has been a good threat for the show. We really haven't had a specific villain, and I think Galasso is really setting him up to be the villain of this season, and I really do like that. Because basically, Richie has been laying off staff, and now has vacant offices, and Galasso suggests that Maury, who runs Round LA Records, move in to share the office space and keep an eye on Galasso's investment, and Zach, who's also intense, gives Richie a nod to go through with the deal, and that it really would make sense if they did that. Now, Richie doesn't really want to do this, but you can't really say no to Galasso. You know how powerful he is, you know he has tons of guys, and they basically have no other, basically have to say yes to Galasso. The problem is, no one else is really prepared that Maury's going to move in there. I think the pressure is definitely going to get to Richie, but now that Maury's moved in there, I mean, that's going to be very interesting to see what happens there, Maury and Richie working together again, because they haven't worked together in quite some time, as we know, so we'll have to see what happens between Maury and Richie. It's going to be very interesting, and I like that Richie did try, at least, but unfortunately, Galasso just didn't listen to reason. He has to have his own catch, and that's just how he is, which is very interesting. So while at Max's Kansas City bar with Ingrid, and jamming the sounds of Peter Tosh, Devon meets this photographer who can't get John Lennon to agree to a photo, and Devon and Ingrid use their charm on Lennon and are eventually able to get a solo shot of him. And then, this is very interesting, we know that Devon's always had this passion for photography. She's always had it, it's always been a passion of hers, but she's never really thought of it as a career, you can tell. And she's always kind of thought of it as just like a side thing, just something she's good at, nothing really she'd want to pursue as a passion. But you can really tell this guy wants her to pursue as a passion. I can't think of his name right now. Billy, I think his name was. He really wants her to pursue this passion. He wants her to go through with it. He thinks that she'd be really good at it. And you see this guy really thinks she's great at photography. And basically, because Devon's so lost, and because this guy actually makes her feel good about it, because Richie never really made her feel good about doing photography, she actually kisses this guy, and it looks like they're going to get into an affair, but it makes sense why Devon's doing this. I mean, she doesn't feel like she's that Richie's okay with this. She doesn't feel like she was able to do all these things because of Richie. Richie sheltered her from all these things. This guy clearly sees a passion for her, and honestly, I'm pretty sure this guy and her, they're going to get together, they're going to start something, and I think it's good for Devon to do that. Devon needs someone who can complement her photography and someone who understands her, and I definitely really like the way that was done. Definitely very interesting stuff there, and we'll have to see the way that that goes. But definitely when Richie sees Devon again, she definitely is going to have to talk a lot about what's going on. And the conversation with Richie where he said, don't flirt with other men, now it kind of makes more sense because Devon is going to have this affair, but you don't really blame her because Richie sheltered her from doing what she really loves, and that's photography. And because of that, Devon didn't really realize, I think, the passion and how great she really is at this photography, and now I think she's really realizing it, and that's the reason why she's actually okay with having this affair. I think that's really what it's about. So Richie's casually picked up on the street by the two detectives who stopped by his house several weeks ago and taken him for questioning, and after giving Richie a chance to confess, they pull out the tape recorder, play back the conversation between Richie and Corzo, and then reveal his office has been bugged for weeks, and he's freaking out. He doesn't know what to do, but he tries to stay restrained. He doesn't just want to freak out. He knows something very bad could happen to him. He plays the situation very cool, and he asks for his lawyer. And basically, we see he's taken to jail. It looks like Richie's going to be in jail for a little bit, and I'm sure he's going to get out of it because we see next week he's back in American Century, but he definitely is going to have to talk to them. It looks like they're going to question about Maury and Galasso, which is very interesting. We'll have to see where that goes, and again, we don't know if they're necessarily suspicious of Richie, if they think that Richie actually is doing this, or if they just want some questions, which from next week, it looks like they just want to ask him some questions, and he's thinking that they're after him, which is very interesting. We'll have to see where that goes. But we do see this montage, which we seem to have a montage every week. I like that we saw, Scott with his girlfriend because we heard so much about her, but we also see the biggest part of this is we see Devon's with the photographer and everything, so that's happening. But we also see that Zach is signing. He's going to sign. What's his name? Now I can't think of his name now. He's going to sign Gary, but he's changing his name to Xavier. That's going to be his artist name now, which is very interesting. And basically, it looks like they're going to sign him, which is very interesting. I like the way that that was done. And then the end of the episode, we see Jorge takes Clark to a dance party that opens his eyes to a world he's never experienced, a music subculture that his Ivy League schooling could have never prepared him for, and he's just getting exposed to Latin music. He's never heard this kind of music before. It's something that's not part of his culture. culture, and now he's really enjoying it. He wants to hear more of it, and that's basically how this episode ends. So overall, guys, I really enjoyed this episode, because like I said, it really was all about the music. Between everything going on with Lester teaching the band about E.A.B, and also we do see, I forgot to say, the Nasty Bits is kind of recording their own version of Woman Like You. It's dirtier, but it's more their style, and it's exactly what Lester told them to do. You got to put your heart and soul into the music, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're writing a song that has their whole heart and soul into it, and I definitely really enjoyed it. I thought it was very well done. They're basically focusing what's in on their hearts, and that really is what matters about music, and I definitely really like that. And that's something I think vinyl just does really well. It explains how powerful music is, how much it affects people, how much people love music, and why we listen to music, which I thought was very well done. I definitely really enjoyed that. But let's talk about Richie. How is he going to get out of this situation? Because these two detectives, you know, are they really there to arrest him, or are they there to question him? We don't really know. What's going to end with this whole Golasso situation? I mean, this is a very dangerous situation. This could end up really bad because, you know, Golasso has his guys, and at any point Golasso wanted to release these guys, he can just do that, and that could end up, that could get American Century into a world of trouble that I think Richie does not want to deal with, and he's not prepared for. But we'll have to see what happens there, because that's going to be very interesting to see what Golasso decides to do, because, like I said, he has these guys, and anything could happen, really, so that's going to be interesting. Devon and this photographer. Obviously, this guy likes her, and I think she kind of likes him as well, because he really understands her. I'm okay with them having an affair, because you know what? Richie kind of deserves it. Richie's been a dick. I think Devon needs to have a break for a little bit, and we do see that Devon's going to come back to Richie next week. We have 2 episodes left, which I can't believe. We'll have to see what happens there. But I like Jorge and Clark as well, because Clark's starting to experience more music, and maybe this can get Clark to tell Richie to maybe have more Latin music. I don't really know. I think that's very interesting. Andi and Richie are definitely going to have a fallout, because Andi does not have as much control, I think, as she thinks she does, which is definitely going to be a problem, and I think Richie's going to be really pissed once he finds this out. We'll have to see what happens there. Obviously, you know, she thinks she can do a lot more than she can, and she can't. They are definitely signing Gary. You can tell by the end they're definitely going to sign Gary. Zach wants them to sign Gary, which I think is a good thing to sign Gary. Gary's very good at what he does, and I wouldn't say, you know, it would definitely be the right thing to do to sign Gary, and I'm happy they're doing that. And I like that we're trying to move forward. I like this episode, like I said, was fun. There were some very fun scenes in this episode. I like that we focused more on the music. I like that it wasn't just about Richie's binging drugs and everything. Now we know why he does cocaine, because it's kind of about the music, and he's trying to do responsibly. But can he really do responsibly? I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, in this episode, it looks like he is trying to do cocaine responsibly, which I'm happy about. But is it really going to work? I mean, is he going to get addicted? When you have an addiction, it doesn't just go away. It continues, and, you know, you're always going to be addicted. So I think Richie feels he'll be able to break this, and he won't. But we'll have to see what happens with that. But overall, guys, I'm going to go with what you guys thought of this episode. This was a really great setup episode for the next 2 episodes. I am so pumped for. We have 2 episodes left this season. This episode really, like I said, regained my faith in the show. 6 and 7 have been great, but this episode really focused on what I wanted to focus on, the music, and that's why I really enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for Shameless. And like I told you guys, if you didn't see my Walking Dead review, what I'm going to do is I'm going to review 10, 11, and 12 all in one video, because I know I'm behind on 3 episodes. I'll mainly talk about the finale, but I'll also talk a little bit about episodes 10 and 11, because I need to talk about those as well. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.